Maya Chen sat in the back corner of her chemistry class, hunched over her notebook like every other 17-year-old trying to blend into the furniture. Her long black hair fell like a curtain around her face, hiding the thin scar that ran from her left temple to her jawline. To her classmates at Jefferson High, she was just another quiet kid who never raised her hand and ate lunch alone. They had no idea that 3 years ago, she had killed her first Zeltharian warrior with nothing but a broken piece of metal and pure human rage. The teacher droned on about molecular bonds while Maya's mind drifted to the Kepler station battles. She could still smell the acrid smoke of burning oxygen recyclers, still hear the wet tearing sound when Zeltharian claws met human flesh. Her fingers unconsciously traced the plasma burn on her right shoulder, hidden beneath her oversized hoodie. Maya, could you answer the question? She snapped back to reality, finding 23 pairs of eyes staring at her. Mrs. Patterson looked annoyed, probably thinking Maya hadn't been paying attention. If only she knew that Maya was remembering how to synthesize combat stimulants from basic medical supplies while under enemy fire. The covalent bond, Maya said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Electrons share between atoms to create stability. Mrs. Patterson nodded, surprised by the correct answer, and moved on. Maya sank back into her chair, wishing she could disappear entirely. This was the hardest part about coming back to Earth, pretending to be normal when normal had been burned out of her 3 years ago. The bell rang, and students rushed toward the door like water through a breach in a ship's hull. Maya took her time packing her things, waiting for the crowd to thin. She'd learned patience in the asteroid mines of Titan, where moving too fast could mean death from Zeltharian snipers. In the hallway, she walked with measured steps, keeping her back to the wall whenever possible. Old habits from the war zones. Her enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversation, gossip about weekend parties, complaints about homework, excitement about the upcoming football game. Normal teenage problems that felt alien to her now. Hey, freak. Maya's blood went cold. She recognized that voice. Derek Morrison, star quarterback and chief tormentor of anyone he considered beneath him. He'd been making her life miserable since she'd transferred to Jefferson 6 months ago. She turned slowly, keeping her hands relaxed at her sides. Derek stood with his usual crew of followers, blocking her path to the exit. In the war, she would have already calculated 17 ways to incapacitate all 4 of them. Here she just had to endure. I'm talking to you, Scarface. Derek stepped closer and Maya caught the scent of his cologne mixed with the lingering smell of cafeteria food, so different from the metallic tang of recycled air and fear that had been her constant companion for 2 years. What's your deal? You never talk to anyone. Think you're too good for us? Maya kept her expression neutral, though inside she was fighting the urge to demonstrate exactly how good she was at making people stop talking. Forever. I just want to go home. Ah, poor little refugee wants to go home. Derek's voice dripped with mock sympathy. Tell me, what was it like watching your family get fried by those alien freaks? The words hit her like a plasma bolt to the chest. Maya's vision went red around the edges, and for a moment she was back on Kepler Station, watching her parents' transport explode in a ball of superheated gas. Her hands clenched into fists, muscle memory from countless battles flooding back. She could break Derek's nose with one quick strike, shatter his kneecap with a precise kick, use the edge of her textbook to crush his windpipe. The techniques flowed through her mind like water, each one perfectly calculated for maximum damage. Instead, she took a deep breath and looked down at her shoes. Please just leave me alone. Derek laughed, the sound echoing off the lockers. Look at her, guys. The tough space girl is gonna cry. He reached out to push her shoulder, and Maya had to force herself not to grab his wrist and snap it. That's enough. Derek, the voice came from behind Maya, and she turned to see Sarah Kim approaching. Sarah was student council president, honor roll student, and one of the few people at Jefferson who'd ever shown Maya any kindness. She was also completely unaware that she was positioning herself between a trained killer and potential targets. Mind your own business, Kim, Derek snarled, but he took a step back. Even bullies knew better than to mess with someone who had the principal's ear. This is my business, Sarah said firmly. Maya, come on. I'll walk you to your locker. Maya nodded gratefully and fell into step beside Sarah, leaving Derek and his friends behind. Her heart was still pounding from the adrenaline surge, her body primed for violence that would never come. This was the worst part, the constant state of readiness with no outlet. "You okay?" Sarah asked as they walked. "Derek can be a real jerk sometimes." "I'm fine," Maya replied automatically. It was her standard response to everything. Fine was safe. Fine didn't invite questions she couldn't answer. They reached Maya's locker and she spun the combination with practiced efficiency. Inside, her books were arranged with military precision, though she'd tried to make it look casual. Her backpack contained items that would have raised eyebrows: emergency rations, a basic first aid kit, and a small device that looked like a phone, but could jam most electronic surveillance. "Listen," Sarah said, lowering her voice. "I know you've been through something terrible. I can see it in your eyes sometimes. If you ever want to talk—" Maya's throat tightened. Sarah meant well, but how could she explain that she'd spent 2 years fighting in a war that most Earth civilians didn't even know had happened? How could she describe watching entire colonies burn, while politicians claimed it was just mining accidents and equipment failures? "Thank you," Maya said softly. "I appreciate it." Sarah smiled and squeezed Maya's shoulder gently before heading to her own locker. Maya watched her go, feeling a pang of something she couldn't quite identify. Longing, maybe, for the life Sarah represented. Normal, safe, innocent. The final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day. Maya shouldered her backpack and joined the stream of students heading for the exits. Outside, yellow buses lined up like military transports, though infinitely safer. She walked past them toward the city bus stop, where she'd wait for the number 47 that would take her back to her foster family's house. As she sat on the bench, Maya allowed herself a moment to remember who she really was. Not the quiet girl who sat in the back of chemistry class, but Maya Chen, former corporal in the Human Colonial Defense Force, veteran of Kepler Station, survivor of the Titan mining incident, and one of only 12 humans to ever kill a Zeltharian in single combat. But here on Earth, in the safety she'd helped secure, she was just another troubled teenager trying to fit in. War made her a warrior. But at school, they still saw a quiet girl Manuer's second document. The Henderson family meant well, Maya knew that. They'd taken her in when the Colonial Defense Force had quietly relocated war orphans back to Earth, and they'd tried their best to make her feel welcome. But sitting at their dinner table, listening to Mr. Henderson complain about his commute while Mrs. Henderson worried about their son Tommy's grades, Maya felt like she was watching aliens. "How was school today, sweetheart?" Mrs. Henderson asked, passing a bowl of mashed potatoes. The question was routine, part of their nightly attempt at normal family conversation. "Fine," Maya replied, taking a small portion. Her appetite had never fully recovered from the war. 2 years of survival rations and the constant threat of death had trained her body to need very little. Tommy, who was 15 and obsessed with video games, looked up from his phone. "Did you see that new VR game about space marines fighting aliens? It looks so realistic. I bet it's nothing like real space combat, though." Maya's fork paused halfway to her mouth. If Tommy only knew that she'd lived through scenarios that would make his precious video games look like children's toys. She'd spent months in zero gravity, learning to fight in 3 dimensions while Zeltharian ships tried to turn her into floating debris. "I wouldn't know," she said quietly. Mr. Henderson chuckled. "Tommy's obsessed with that sci-fi stuff. Always has been. Did you know they're saying we might actually encounter alien life in the next 50 years? Of course, it'll probably just be microbes or something boring like that." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The Zeltharians were many things, but microbes definitely wasn't one of them. Standing 8 feet tall with 4 arms and natural armor plating, they were the stuff of nightmares made real. And they were already here, had been for years, mining the outer colonies and killing anyone who got in their way. After dinner, Maya excused herself to do homework. In her room, she closed the door and activated the small signal jammer hidden in her desk drawer. Only then did she power up her encrypted communicator, a piece of military hardware disguised as a broken tablet. A message was waiting for her, marked with the seal of the Colonial Defense Force. Her pulse quickened as she opened it. "Agent Chen," the text read, "New intelligence suggests Zeltharian advanced scouts may be operating in your area. Maintain cover but stay alert. Be ready for extraction if necessary. Remember your oath." Maya stared at the message until it automatically deleted itself. Agent Chen, that's who she really was. Not the quiet high school student everyone thought they knew. The Defense Force had placed several veterans in schools across Earth, young-looking soldiers who could blend in while watching for signs of Zeltharian infiltration. She moved to her window and looked out at the suburban street below. Mrs. Carson was walking her dog. The Johnson kids were playing basketball in their driveway. Everything looked so peaceful, so normal. None of them knew that monsters might be walking among them. A soft knock on her door made her freeze. "Maya, can I come in?" It was Tommy's voice. Maya quickly shut down the communicator and slipped it back into its hiding place. "Sure," Tommy entered, looking uncharacteristically serious. At 15, he still had the gangly awkwardness of adolescence, all knees and elbows and uncertain confidence. "Hey, I wanted to apologize for earlier, about the space combat thing. Mom told me your parents died in some kind of mining accident out there. I shouldn't have brought it up." Maya felt a stab of something unexpected, guilt maybe, or longing. Tommy was trying to be kind, trying to connect with her in the only way he knew how. If circumstances were different, if she really was just a war orphan instead of an active military operative, she might have been able to accept that kindness. "It's okay," she said. "You didn't know." Tommy shifted his weight from foot to foot, clearly wanting to say more. "It's just, you seem so sad all the time, and angry. Like you're carrying something really heavy that nobody else can see." The observation hit closer to home than Maya was comfortable with. Tommy might be just a teenager obsessed with video games, but he was more perceptive than she'd given him credit for. "Sometimes people go through things that change them," she said carefully. "Things that are hard to talk about." "Yeah, I get that." Tommy sat down on her desk chair, spinning it slightly. "I know we're not real family or anything, but if you ever want to talk... I mean, I know I'm just a kid, but sometimes it helps to talk to someone who doesn't expect you to be okay all the time." Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she'd missed before. Behind the typical teenager exterior was someone who genuinely cared, someone who'd noticed her pain even when she thought she was hiding it perfectly. "Thank you," she said, and meant it. That's really nice of you to offer," Tommy grinned, the serious moment breaking. "Plus, if you ever want to learn about those Space Marine games, I could show you. I know they're probably nothing like real life, but they're pretty fun. If only he knew how good she'd be at those games." Maya had trained on military simulators that made civilian games look like finger painting, but she couldn't say that, couldn't reveal even that much about her real background. "Maybe sometime," she said instead. After Tommy left, Maya lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling. The message from the Defense Force weighed on her mind. Zeltharian scouts on Earth meant the war was entering a new phase, one that could expose everything the government had been hiding from its own people. For 3 years, the official story had been that mining operations in the outer colonies sometimes encountered equipment failures or natural disasters. The truth, that humanity was fighting a brutal war against an alien species determined to strip Earth's solar system of resources, was classified at the highest levels. Maya understood the reasoning. Panic would serve no purpose when the fighting was happening billions of miles away. Better to let people live their normal lives while soldiers like her kept the monsters at bay. But now the monsters might be coming to the suburbs. She thought about Derek Morrison and his casual cruelty, about Mrs. Patterson teaching chemistry as if molecular bonds were the most important thing in the universe, about Sarah Kim trying to bridge the gap between her perfect student council world and Maya's carefully constructed isolation. They were all so innocent, so unaware of what lurked in the dark between the stars. Maya had killed to protect that innocence, had watched friends die to preserve it. The idea that Zeltharian scouts might be here, on Earth, planning who knew what kind of attack, made her stomach clench with familiar combat anxiety. She got up and moved to her closet, pushing aside the normal teenage clothes to reveal a hidden panel in the back wall. Inside was her real wardrobe, combat armor designed to look like motorcycle gear, weapons that appeared to be sports equipment, and a full field kit that could keep her alive in any environment from Arctic wasteland to desert hell. Maya ran her fingers over the armor's surface, feeling the places where Zeltharian claws had left their mark. Each scratch told a story of survival, of split-second decisions between life and death. She'd worn this armor through the siege of Kepler Station, through the running battles in the Titan mining tunnels, through missions that officially never happened. Tomorrow she'd put on her jeans and hoodie again, sit in the back of chemistry class again, pretend to be just another quiet student again. But tonight, she was Corporal Maya Chen of the Colonial Defense Force, and she had work to do. The communicator came back to life with another message, this one containing coordinates and a mission briefing. Maya read it carefully, memorizing every detail before the text vanished. A Zeltharian signal had been detected somewhere in the city. Weak but unmistakable, Maya began to prepare, checking her equipment with the methodical precision of a soldier who'd learned that forgotten details meant death. Whatever was out there, whatever the Zeltharians were planning, she'd be ready. The quiet girl routine would have to wait. War made her a warrior, but at school, they still saw a quiet girl. Third document Maya slipped out of the Henderson house at 2:47 a.m., moving through the shadows like the ghost she'd been trained to be. The coordinates from her mission briefing led to an abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where nobody asked questions about strange lights or unusual sounds. Her combat gear felt familiar against her skin after months of civilian clothes. The armor moved with her like a second layer of muscle, responsive and protective. Her helmet's heads-up display painted the world in crisp detail, highlighting potential threats and marking her route with precision that would have seemed like magic to her classmates. The warehouse in question sat dark and seemingly empty, but Maya's enhanced sensors told a different story. Heat signatures moved inside the building, too large and too hot to be human. Her blood ran cold as the signatures resolved into familiar shapes. Zeltharians. 3 of them, maybe 4. Maya activated her comm system and sent a coded burst transmission back to command. Target confirmed. Multiple hostiles present. Requesting backup. The response came immediately. Negative on backup. Maintain stealth. Observe and report only. Observe and report. Maya's jaw tightened. She'd spent 2 years fighting these things face to face, and now command wanted her to just watch? But orders were orders, even when they felt like a slap in the face. She found a position on a neighboring building's roof, using her suit's optical enhancements to peer through the warehouse's grimy windows. What she saw made her stomach drop. The Zeltharians weren't just scouting. They were setting up some kind of equipment, working with the focused intensity she remembered from the mining stations. But this wasn't mining gear. This looked like communications equipment. A lot of it. One of the aliens turned, and Maya got her first clear look at a Zeltharian in over 6 months. 8 feet of nightmare wrapped in natural armor, with forearms that ended in claws capable of shredding steel. Its elongated head swept back and forth, testing the air with sensory organs that could detect a human heartbeat from 50 yards away. Maya forced herself to breathe slowly, keeping her heart rate steady. The armor's stealth systems would hide her from most sensors, but Zeltharians had evolved as apex predators on a world where anything that moved was potential prey. As she watched, more heat signatures appeared on her scanner. Maya cursed silently as she realized what was happening. This wasn't just a scouting mission, it was a full infiltration operation. The warehouse was becoming a staging ground for something much bigger. Her comm system crackled with an encrypted transmission from an unknown source. Ghost 7, this is Reaper Actual. We have you on scope. Maya's blood ran cold. Ghost 7 had been her call sign during the Titan operations, but Reaper Actual wasn't a designation she recognized. Someone knew who she was, someone who shouldn't have that information. Identify yourself, she transmitted back, keeping her voice barely above a whisper. Negative. Orders are to maintain radio silence until extraction. Be ready to move in 60 seconds. I don't have extraction orders, Maya replied, but the comm channel had already gone dead. She counted down the seconds, her training warring with her confusion. Nothing about this felt right. The mission briefing had been observation only, but now someone was talking about extraction. Either command had changed the plan without telling her, or something else was going on. At 58 seconds, the warehouse exploded. The blast lit up the night sky, sending chunks of concrete and metal flying in all directions. Maya's armor protected her from the worst of the debris, but the shockwave still knocked her flat. Her ears rang despite the helmet's audio protection, and for a moment she was back on Kepler Station, watching transport ships die in balls of fire. Through the smoke and flames, she saw shapes moving. Not Zeltharians, these were human. Wearing military gear she didn't recognize. They moved through the wreckage with professional efficiency, checking for survivors and collecting pieces of alien technology. Maya's comm system crackled back to life. Go 7, report to Extraction Point Alpha. Mission complete, mission complete? Maya stared at the burning warehouse in confusion. She hadn't completed any mission. She'd just been watching when someone else had blown the place up. And who were these people who knew her old call sign? Against her better judgment, Maya made her way to Extraction Point Alpha, which turned out to be a parking lot 3 blocks away. A black SUV waited there, its engine running and windows tinted dark enough to hide whatever was inside. The rear door opened as she approached, revealing a woman in civilian clothes who looked to be in her 40s. She had the bearing of career military, even in her business suit, and her eyes held the kind of hardness that came from making difficult decisions. "Corporal Chen," the woman said. "Get in, we need to talk." Maya hesitated. Nothing about this situation appeared in any protocol she'd been taught, but the woman knew her rank and her real name, which meant she was either legitimate military or someone with access to highly classified information. "Who are you?" Maya asked, not moving toward the vehicle. "Someone who knows what you've been through," the woman replied. "Someone who knows the real reason you're at Jefferson High, and someone who needs your help to stop what's coming." Maya's mind raced through possibilities. This could be a trap. Zeltharians had shown disturbing abilities to mimic human behavior when it suited their purposes. But the warehouse explosion had definitely killed real aliens, and whoever these people were, they'd acted to protect Earth just like she would have. The warehouse mission wasn't official, was it? Maya said, putting pieces together. The woman smiled grimly. "Very good. No, it wasn't. The official mission would have had you watching while they finished setting up their communications array. By the time Command decided to act, half the Zeltharian fleet would have been on its way to Earth." Maya felt the world shift beneath her feet. "You're saying Command is compromised?" "I'm saying Command is playing politics while aliens establish beachheads on our home planet." The woman leaned forward slightly. "The question is, are you going to keep following orders that might get everyone you're trying to protect killed? Or are you going to help us do what needs to be done?" It was the kind of choice Maya had hoped never to face again. During the war, at least the enemy had been clear. Zeltharians wanted to kill humans and strip their worlds clean of resources. Simple, straightforward, easy to fight against. But this was different. This was choosing between 2 groups of humans, both claiming to protect Earth, both asking for her loyalty. And her choice might determine whether her classmates at Jefferson High lived to see graduation. Maya thought about Tommy Henderson trying to connect with her, about Sarah Kim offering friendship, about Derek Morrison's casual cruelty that somehow seemed innocent compared to the horrors she'd witnessed among the stars. They were all just living their lives, unaware that forces beyond their comprehension were deciding their fate. "What do you need me to do?" Maya asked, stepping toward the SUV. The woman's smile became genuine for the first time. "What you do best, Corporal. What you were trained for. We need you to be a soldier." As Maya climbed into the vehicle, she wondered if she'd just made the right choice or the biggest mistake of her life. But one thing was certain. Her days of pretending to be a normal teenager were over. The SUV pulled away from the parking lot, leaving the burning warehouse behind. Maya watched the flames through the rear window until they disappeared behind buildings, taking with them the last remnants of her cover identity. Tomorrow, Jefferson High would have to manage without its quiet girl in the back row. Maya Chen had work to do. War made her a warrior, but at school, they still saw a quiet girl, our 4th document. The woman in the SUV introduced herself as Director Catherine Walsh, head of something called the Terrestrial Defense Initiative. As they drove through the empty streets, Walsh explained what Maya had stumbled into, a shadow war between 2 factions of humanity's defense forces. "The Colonial Defense Force wants to handle this quietly," Walsh said, her voice steady despite the SUV's movement through traffic. "Negotiate with the Zeltharians. Maybe find some kind of peaceful coexistence. They think we can manage this without the public ever knowing aliens exist." Maya stared out the window at sleeping houses, their windows dark and peaceful. "And you disagree?" "I think the CDF command has forgotten what Zeltharians actually are," Walsh replied sharply. "You've fought them, Chen. You've seen what they do to colonies that try to negotiate. How many mining stations did you watch them turn into graveyards?" Too many, Maya thought, but didn't say aloud. Instead, she asked, "What's your alternative?" Complete elimination of the Zeltharian presence in our solar system, Walsh said without hesitation. No negotiations, no coexistence, no half measures. They came here to strip our worlds clean and kill anyone who gets in their way. We respond accordingly. The SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath what looked like an ordinary office building. As they descended into deeper levels, Maya saw the truth. This was a military facility disguised as corporate headquarters. Soldiers moved through corridors with purpose, their weapons and armor marking them as veterans of conflicts most people didn't know existed. Walsh led Maya to a briefing room where holographic displays showed tactical information that made her breath catch. Zeltharian positions throughout the solar system, far more extensive than anything she'd seen in official CDF briefings. Mining operations on dozens of asteroids, scout ships in the outer planets, and something that looked like a major staging area being built on the dark side of the moon. They're not just scouting anymore, Maya said, studying the displays. This is preparation for full invasion. Exactly. And while CDF Command debates diplomatic options, the Zeltharians are getting ready to turn Earth into another Kepler station. Walsh activated another display, showing projected casualty figures that made Maya's stomach turn. 8 billion people, Chen. That's what's at stake. Maya thought about the Henderson family sleeping peacefully in their suburban home, about her classmates at Jefferson High planning for futures they might never see. The weight of 8 billion lives pressed down on her like the gravity of a collapsed star. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Walsh smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Intelligence first. You were inside CDF operations for 2 years. We need to know their deployment patterns, their command structure, their weaknesses. You want me to betray my former unit. I want you to save your species." Walsh's voice carried the kind of conviction that had sent soldiers charging into impossible odds. Throughout human history, the CDF isn't evil, Chen, they're just wrong. And their mistake could cost us everything. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weight of impossible choices. During the war, decisions had been simpler. Kill or be killed, fight or die, protect the colony or watch it burn. But this was different. This was choosing between two groups of humans who both claimed to want the same thing. "I need time to think," Maya said. "Time is what we don't have," Walsh replied, but she nodded. 48 hours. After that, we move with or without your help." They gave Maya a secure apartment in the building, 3 floors underground and surrounded by enough steel and concrete to stop a tank round. She sat on the narrow bed and stared at the walls, trying to process everything she'd learned. Her encrypted communicator buzzed with an incoming message from CDF Command. Maya hesitated before opening it, knowing that whatever it contained would probably make her choice even more complicated. "Agent Chen," the message read, "failed to report in after last night's mission. Explain delay immediately. New intelligence suggests rogue elements may be active in your area. Trust no one outside official channels." Maya stared at the message until it deleted itself. Rogue elements. Was that what CDF Command called the Terrestrial Defense Initiative? Or was TDI what the CDF called rogue? She activated the communicator's reply function and typed carefully. "Technical difficulties with equipment. Situation nominal. Request detailed intelligence on rogue elements." The response came quickly. "Maintain current cover. Investigate any unusual military activity. Report immediately if contacted by unknown operatives. Remember your oath to defend humanity." Maya shut down the communicator and lay back on the bed. Both sides claimed to be defending humanity. Both sides had evidence to support their position. And both sides were asking her to betray the other. She thought about her parents, killed in the first Zeltharian attack on Kepler Station. They'd been scientists, believers in the power of knowledge and understanding to solve humanity's problems. What would they have wanted her to do? But she also thought about her squad mates who died in the Titan mining tunnels, cut down by Zeltharian claws while trying to evacuate civilian workers. They'd believed in direct action, in meeting violence with overwhelming force. What would they have chosen? Maya's comm unit buzzed again, this time with a message from an unknown source. "Maya, it's Sarah from school. I know this is weird, but I'm worried about you. You missed chemistry today, and Mrs. Patterson said you haven't been answering calls from your foster family. Are you okay? I'm probably being stupid, but something feels wrong. Please let me know you're safe." The message hit Maya like a punch to the gut. Sarah Kim, perfect student council president, was worried about the quiet girl who sat in the back of chemistry class. While Maya was wrestling with decisions that could determine the fate of human civilization, Sarah was simply concerned about a friend. Maya stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Sarah's innocent worry reminded her what she was really fighting for. Not abstract concepts like species survival or political ideology, but actual people living actual lives. People who deserved to wake up tomorrow in a world where their biggest concerns were chemistry, tests, and weekend plans. She made her decision. Maya activated her CDF communicator one last time and typed a message she hoped she wouldn't regret. Have been contacted by rogue elements. They call themselves Terrestrial Defense Initiative. Require immediate extraction and full briefing on current situation. Will maintain cover until contact. Then she destroyed the communicator using techniques learned in the field to ensure no trace of its existence remained. If she was going to betray someone, she'd rather betray the people who'd recruited her with explosions and ultimatums than the ones who'd trusted her with a mission. But as she settled in to wait for CDF's response, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a trap of her own making. In 46 hours, Director Walsh would expect an answer, and Maya had no idea what she was going to say. Outside her underground room, the shadow war continued, and somewhere above, Sarah Kim was probably still worrying about a friend who might not exist anymore. War made her a warrior, but at school, they still saw a quiet girl. Fifth document Maya's extraction came at dawn, executed with the kind of precision that reminded her why she'd trusted the CDF in the first place. No explosions, no dramatic confrontations, just a maintenance worker who appeared in her secure room with the correct codes and a simple message. Time to go home, soldier. The extraction route took them through service tunnels that connected to the city's subway system. Maya's escort, a woman who introduced herself only as Agent Torres, moved with the confident efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. Director Walsh isn't going to be happy, Torres said as they walked through the underground passages. TDI doesn't like losing potential recruits. What exactly is TDI? Maya asked. Walsh made it sound like you're the ones who've gone rogue. Torres smiled grimly. Depends on your perspective. TDI formed when certain members of CDF Command decided that official policy wasn't aggressive enough. They're not wrong about the threat level. The Zeltharians are definitely planning something big. They're just wrong about how to handle it. They emerged from the subway into the early morning bustle of downtown, blending seamlessly with commuters heading to work. Maya marveled at how normal everything looked. People complained about train delays and spilled coffee while two different human factions prepared for a war that could determine the survival of their species. What happens to me now? Maya asked as they walked. Debriefing first, Torres replied. Then we figure out how to use what you learned. TDI showed you their intelligence, which gives us valuable insight into their capabilities. Maya felt a stab of guilt. She'd gained Walsh's trust by claiming to consider joining TDI, only to immediately betray that information to the CDF. But Walsh had recruited her with explosions and ultimatums, while the CDF had trusted her with a mission based on her service record. Still, the guilt remained. They arrived at what appeared to be a small accounting firm in a nondescript office building. The facade was perfect. Even the receptionist seemed genuinely surprised to see visitors this early. But Maya's trained eye caught the subtle signs of a military installation. Reinforced door frames, hidden security cameras, and the particular way the receptionist's hand rested near what was probably a panic button. The debriefing took place in a conference room that could have belonged to any corporate office, complete with motivational posters and a coffee machine that looked like it had seen better days. The man waiting for them, however, was clearly military despite his civilian suit. Colonel Martinez, he introduced himself, extending a hand. I commanded the Titan defense operations during your last deployment. Maya remembered Titan, endless tunnels carved through frozen rock, Zeltharian raiders appearing without warning, civilian miners caught in the crossfire. Martinez had been the voice on the radio coordinating their desperate defense, calm and professional even when it looked like they were all going to die. Sir, Maya said, shaking his hand. Good to see you again. Likewise, Chen, I hear you've had an interesting few days. Martinez gestured for her to sit, then activated a recording device. Tell me everything about your contact with TDI. Maya recounted her experiences with Director Walsh, describing TDI's facility, their intelligence displays, and their operational capabilities. Martinez listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on a tablet. Their intelligence is impressive, he admitted when she finished. Some of this data is more current than our own, but their conclusions are dangerous. Walsh said you want to negotiate with the Zeltharians, Maya said. Is that true? Martinez sighed, suddenly looking older than his years. It's more complicated than that. Yes, there are elements within CDF Command who believe diplomatic solutions should be explored, but there are also those who want to glass every Zeltharian position in the solar system. Civilian populations be damned. Civilian populations? The Zeltharians aren't a purely military force, Chen. They're an entire species with families and non-combatants just like us. Some of their mining operations include what can only be described as settlements, places where Zeltharian civilians are trying to build new lives. Maya felt the world shift slightly. During her combat deployments, she'd never seen evidence of Zeltharian civilians. Every alien she'd encountered had been armed and hostile, leaving her with the impression that their entire species was essentially military. That doesn't change what they've done to human colonies, Maya said. No, it doesn't, Martinez agreed. But it complicates our response options. TDI wants to exterminate every Zeltharian in the solar system. That includes the civilians, the children, everyone. They're talking about genocide, Chen. The word hung in the air like smoke from a battlefield. Maya had killed Zeltharian soldiers in combat, had watched her friends die at their claws, had seen entire human settlements turned into graveyards. But genocide was different. Genocide was what happened when wars became something other than wars. What's the alternative? Maya asked. Surgical strikes against military targets while opening communication channels with their civilian leadership, Martinez replied. Find out what they really want, what drove them here in the first place. Maybe we can find a solution that doesn't require the extinction of either species. Maya thought about the Zeltharian she'd watched in the warehouse, working with focused intensity on communication equipment. Had it been a soldier following orders or someone trying to contact family back home? The armor and claws made it impossible to tell. What about the intelligence I gathered? Maya asked. Are you going to act on it? That depends on what you decide to do next, Martinez said. TDI expects an answer from you in 36 hours. We'd like you to give them one. Maya felt the familiar weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. You want me to go back? We want you to find out what TDI is really planning, Martinez corrected. Their intelligence suggests they're preparing for major operations against Zeltharian positions. If they're planning something that could trigger full-scale retaliation against Earth, we need to know. And if they are, Martinez met her eyes directly. Then we stop them. The implications were clear. Maya would be going back to TDI not as a potential recruit, but as a spy for the CDF. She'd be betraying Director Walsh a second time, this time with the explicit purpose of sabotaging TDI operations. What about my cover at Jefferson High? Maya asked. Sarah Kim is already asking questions about where I've been. Maintain it as long as possible, Martinez said. Your foster family believes you're on a school trip. We can extend that cover for a few more days if necessary. Maya nodded, though the mention of Sarah's concern made her chest tight. The perfect student council president was worried about a friend who didn't really exist, whose entire identity was built on lies and classified operations. There's one more thing, Martinez said, his voice becoming softer. The psychological evaluation team has concerns about your extended deep cover assignment. 2 years of combat followed by 8 months of pretending to be a normal teenager. That's not a sustainable situation for anyone. I'm fine, Maya said automatically. Are you? Martinez studied her face. When this is over, whatever the outcome, we're going to need to find you a new assignment. Something that doesn't require you to split your identity in half. Maya realized she'd been holding her breath. The idea of not having to pretend anymore, of not having to sit in chemistry class while remembering the smell of burning flesh, was both terrifying and appealing. Let's get through the next few days first, she said. Martinez nodded and handed her a new communicator, this one disguised as a smartphone. Check in every 12 hours. And Chen, be careful. TDI plays by different rules than we do. As Maya left the building, she found herself thinking about rules and the different ways people interpreted them. The CDF wanted to follow military protocols and diplomatic procedures. TDI wanted to win at any cost. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, Zeltharians were making their own plans. Maya caught a bus back toward the suburbs, watching ordinary people live their ordinary lives while she carried the weight of decisions that could determine whether those lives continued. In a few hours, she'd be walking back into TDI headquarters with a lie on her lips and betrayal in her heart. But first, she had a promise to keep to a worried friend who still believed Maya Chen was just a quiet girl who sat in the back of chemistry class. War made her a warrior, but at school, they still saw a quiet girl. Sixth document, Maya found Sarah Kim in the school library, bent over a pile of textbooks with the focused concentration that had made her valedictorian material. It was lunch period and most students were in the cafeteria or outside enjoying the afternoon sun, but Sarah was studying as if her life depended on it. In a way, Maya realized, it did. All their lives depended on maintaining the illusion that the most important thing happening in their world was preparing for college entrance exams. Sarah, Maya said quietly, sliding into the seat across from her. Sarah looked up, her face cycling through relief, concern, and something that might have been anger. Maya, where have you been? I've been worried sick. The school said you were on some kind of family emergency trip, but your foster parents didn't know anything about it. Maya felt the familiar stab of guilt that came with lying to innocent people. It's complicated. Family stuff that I can't really talk about. Are you okay? Sarah leaned forward, studying Maya's face with the intensity she usually reserved for difficult equations. You look different, tired, and there's something in your eyes that wasn't there before. Maya realized that 8 months of hiding among teenagers had made her forget how perceptive some of them could be. Sarah Kim might be focused on grades and student council politics, but she was also genuinely intelligent and observant. I'm fine, Maya said, the automatic response that had become her default for everything. No, you're not. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. Maya, I know we're not super close friends or anything, but I care about what happens to you. And something is obviously wrong. Maya stared at her hands, fighting the urge to tell Sarah everything. The truth about the war, about the Zeltharians, about the impossible choices that were tearing human civilization apart, while teenagers worried about homework and college applications. If I told you, Maya said slowly, you wouldn't believe me. And even if you did, it would just make everything worse. Sarah reached across the table and touched Maya's hand. The gesture was simple, human, and somehow more comforting than all the tactical support Maya had received from her military handlers. Try me, Sarah said. For a moment, Maya was tempted. The weight of secrets and lies felt crushing, and Sarah's genuine concern was like sunlight after months of darkness. But then she thought about Director Walsh's intelligence displays, about Colonel Martinez's warnings about TDI, about the 8 billion people who were sleeping peacefully because they didn't know that their survival hung in the balance. I can't, Maya said finally. I'm sorry, but I just can't. Sarah nodded, disappointment flickering across her face. Okay, but Maya, whatever's going on, whatever you're dealing with, you don't have to handle it alone. There are people who care about you, even if you don't believe it. Maya squeezed Sarah's hand once before pulling away. Thank you. That means more than you know. As Maya stood to leave, Sarah called out softly, Will I see you in class tomorrow? Maya turned back, memorizing Sarah's face. The genuine concern, the intelligence, the basic human decency that made her care about a strange girl who'd never really opened up to anyone. This might be the last time she saw Sarah Kim, depending on how the next few days played out. I hope so, Maya said, and meant it. 3 hours later, Maya was back in the TDI facility, sitting across from Director Walsh in the same briefing room where she'd first learned about the shadow war between human factions. 36 hours, Walsh said, checking her watch. You're early. I take that as a good sign. Maya nodded, trying to project the right mixture of determination and uncertainty. I've made my decision, but I need to understand exactly what you're asking me to do. Walsh activated the holographic displays, showing updated intelligence on Zeltarian positions throughout the solar system. The situation had deteriorated even in the short time Maya had been away. New mining operations, additional scout ships, and what looked like major construction projects on several asteroids. The situation is accelerating, Walsh explained. Our intelligence suggests the Zeltharians are preparing for something big. possibly a direct assault on Earth within the next few months. Maya studied the displays, using her combat experience to interpret the tactical situation. Walsh was right. This looked like preparation for major operations, not just continued mining and scouting. "What's your plan?" Maya asked. "Simultaneous strikes against all major Zeltharian positions," Walsh replied without hesitation. "Hit them hard and fast before they can coordinate a response. We estimate 90% chance of success if we can achieve complete surprise." "And the other 10%? Walsh's expression darkened. "Total war. But that's what we're going to get anyway if we let them complete their preparations." Maya thought about Colonel Martinez's description of Zeltharian civilians, of families trying to build new lives in the asteroid mining colonies. "What about non-combatants?" "What about them?" Walsh's voice turned cold. "They're part of an invasion force, Chen. There are no innocent Zeltharians in our solar system." The certainty in Walsh's voice was absolute, brooking no discussion or debate. Maya recognized the tone from her own combat deployments, the mindset that divided the universe into us and them, friends and enemies, human and alien. "I understand," Maya said, though she wasn't sure she did anymore. Walsh leaned forward, her expression becoming intense. "We need your help with the operational planning. Your combat experience against Zeltharian forces is invaluable. You know how they think, how they fight, what their weaknesses are. When do you plan to strike?" 72 hours, Walsh replied. "Long enough to finalize our preparations, but not long enough for the situation to deteriorate further." Maya's mind raced. 72 hours to gather intelligence and report back to Colonel Martinez. 72 hours to figure out whether TDI was planning necessary military action or committing genocide. 72 hours to decide which side was right. "I'll need access to your operational files," Maya said. "Battle plans, target lists, force deployments. If I'm going to help, I need to see everything." Walsh smiled, the expression sharp and predatory. "I was hoping you'd say that. Welcome to TDI, Corporal Chen." Over the next several hours, Maya immersed herself in TDI's planning documents. The scope of their operation was staggering. Simultaneous assaults on 47 different Zeltharian positions, using weapons and tactics that would leave no survivors. But as Maya studied the intelligence reports, she began to notice discrepancies. Locations marked as military targets included facilities that showed clear signs of civilian habitation, mining operations that housed what appeared to be family groups, even what might have been schools or medical facilities. Maya cross-referenced the targeting data with her own combat experience, looking for the telltale signs that distinguished military installations from civilian settlements. The more she looked, the more convinced she became that TDI was planning to attack both. Her encrypted communicator buzzed with a message from Colonel Martinez. "Status report required." "Are you safe?" Maya typed back carefully. "Operational planning proceeding. Target list extensive. Will report full details at next scheduled contact." She couldn't say more without risking detection, but she hoped Martinez would understand the implications. TDI wasn't just planning military strikes. They were planning the systematic destruction of every Zeltharian presence in the solar system. As Maya continued her analysis, she found herself thinking about Sarah Kim's question. "Will I see you in class tomorrow?" The answer, Maya realized, might depend on whether she could find a way to prevent two different human factions from starting a war that could destroy both species. She was no longer just a soldier following orders or a spy gathering intelligence. She was the person who might have to choose between genocide and extinction, with 72 hours to find a third option that didn't exist. War made her a warrior, but at school they still saw a quiet girl. Seventh document, Maya had 18 hours left when she realized the answer wasn't choosing between the CDF and TDI. The answer was making them both irrelevant. She sat in her assigned quarters at TDI headquarters, surrounded by operational planning documents that detailed the systematic destruction of every Zeltharian presence in the solar system. In her encrypted communicator, she had Colonel Martinez's latest message asking for a full intelligence report. And in her memory, she carried Sarah Kim's worried voice asking if she'd see her in class tomorrow. All of it led to the same conclusion. While humans fought among themselves about how to handle the Zeltharian presence, nobody was actually talking to the Zeltharians themselves. Maya accessed TDI's communication intercepts, using her new clearance to dig into intelligence that had been classified above her previous pay grade. What she found made her blood run cold and then gave her hope. The Zeltharian communications weren't tactical military traffic. They were civilian transmissions. Families reporting successful mining yields to support colony ships still traveling between stars. Medical facilities requesting supplies for injured workers. Schools asking for textbooks and educational materials for their children. The Zeltharians weren't preparing to invade Earth. They were trying to build a life in the outer solar system, while their main population fled whatever disaster had driven them from their homeworld. Maya stared at the intercepts, feeling pieces click into place. The military presence, the defensive positions, the communication arrays, it wasn't preparation for assault. It was protection for refugees who had nowhere else to go. But that realization created an even bigger problem. TDI would launch their genocidal strike in 18 hours, and the CDF's diplomatic overtures would take months to organize. Maya needed a solution that worked immediately. She thought about her parents, killed in the first contact between humans and Zeltharians at Kepler Station. They'd been scientists, believers in communication and understanding. They'd also been among the first casualties when fear and misunderstanding led to violence. Maya made her decision. Using her access to TDI's communication systems, Maya began crafting a message that would have gotten her court-martialed if either human faction had known about it. She wasn't speaking for the CDF or TDI or the Terrestrial Defense Initiative. She was speaking as Maya Chen, veteran of Kepler Station and survivor of the Titan mining wars. The message was simple. To the Zeltharian commanders in our solar system, this is Corporal Maya Chen of the Human Colonial Defense Force. We need to talk. Maya routed the transmission through TDI's most powerful communication array, broadcasting it on every frequency the Zeltharians had been known to use. Then she sat back and waited to see if 18 hours would be enough to prevent two different wars. The response came faster than she'd expected. A transmission in broken but understandable English. Corporal Chen, we know this name. You fought at Kepler Station. You killed many of our warriors. Maya's hands trembled as she typed her reply. Yes, and your warriors killed many of my people. But we're both still here. Maybe it's time to find out why. What followed was the most important conversation in human history, conducted by a 17-year-old girl who was supposed to be in chemistry class, negotiating with aliens who had been labeled as humanity's greatest threat. The Zeltharian commander, who identified himself as strategic leader Thexmore, explained their situation in terms that made Maya's chest tight with recognition. His people were refugees, fleeing the destruction of their homeworld by an artificial intelligence they'd created and lost control of. They'd been searching for new worlds to colonize when they encountered human mining operations in the outer solar system. We did not know humans were sentient, Thexmore transmitted. Your mining equipment showed no signs of advanced intelligence. When our scouts approached, humans attacked with primitive but effective weapons. We defended ourselves. Maya realized that first contact at Kepler Station had been a tragic misunderstanding. Zeltharian scouts, probably desperate and far from home, had approached what they thought were automated mining platforms. The human miners faced with 8-foot-tall aliens had opened fire first. How many of your people are in our solar system? Maya asked. 47,000 in the outer colonies. 12 million more in ships between stars, seeking new worlds to sustain life. The numbers staggered Maya. 12 million refugees, fleeing a disaster that had destroyed their civilization. They weren't invaders. They were survivors looking for hope among the stars. But hope wasn't going to stop TDI's strike, which was now 15 hours away. Maya began typing frantically, outlining a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. She proposed an immediate ceasefire, followed by a joint human-Zeltharian operation to establish communication protocols and territorial boundaries. The outer asteroid belt for Zeltharian colonies, the inner planets remaining under human control, with shared mining rights in neutral zones. This proposal has merit, Thexmore responded, but we have detected human military preparations against our colonies. Multiple strike forces preparing for attack. Maya's heart sank. Zeltharian intelligence was just as good as human intelligence, maybe better. They knew TDI was coming. I can stop the attack, Maya transmitted, hoping it was true, but I need proof that your people want peace, not war. What proof would you require? Maya thought quickly. Withdraw all military forces from the inner system. Transmit complete intelligence on your colony locations and civilian populations. Accept human observers at your major settlements. She was asking Thexmore to make his people completely vulnerable to human attack, trusting that Maya could prevent the very genocide TDI was planning. "This is acceptable," came the reply, "but we require reciprocal gestures. Human military forces must also withdraw from the outer system. Complete intelligence on human defensive positions. Zeltharian observers at human colony. Worlds." It was exactly what Maya had hoped. 4. Mutual vulnerability that would make war impossible for either side. But she still had to convince two different human factions to accept peace with aliens they'd been taught to see as monsters. Maya activated her CDF communicator and sent an emergency transmission to Colonel Martinez. "Urgent. Have established communication with Zeltharian leadership. Ceasefire possible. Request immediate conference." Then she walked down the hall to Director Walsh's office, knowing she was about to commit treason against the organization that had trusted her. Walsh looked up from her planning documents as Maya entered. "Chen, everything ready for tomorrow's operation?" "Director," Maya said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. "I need to show you something that changes everything." Over the next hour, Maya laid out the intelligence she'd gathered from the Zeltharian communications. Walsh listened with growing disbelief as Maya explained that their targets weren't military installations but refugee camps. "Even if this is true," Walsh said finally, "it doesn't change the threat they represent. 12 million aliens with advanced technology, living in our solar system, that's an invasion force, Chen." "Or it's 12 million people looking for a home," Maya replied. "People whose children go to school and whose families worry about them and who just want to survive." "They're not people," Walsh snapped. "They're aliens. And sentiment like yours is exactly why the CDF can't handle this situation." Maya realized that no amount of evidence would change Walsh's mind. TDI was committed to their genocidal solution regardless of the facts, so Maya played her final card. "Director," she said quietly, "I've been in contact with the Zeltharian leadership." "They know about tomorrow's attack. They're prepared to defend themselves." Walsh's face went white. "That's impossible. Our operational security is absolute. Your operational security doesn't account for the possibility that the targets might be intelligent," Maya replied. "They've been monitoring your preparations for days. Tomorrow's strike isn't going to be a surprise attack against defenseless colonies. It's going to be the opening battle of a war that will kill billions on both sides." For the first time since Maya had met her, Director Walsh looked uncertain. The prospect of mutual annihilation was apparently more persuasive than moral arguments about genocide. "What are you proposing?" Walsh asked. "Give me 12 hours, Maya said. "Let me see if diplomacy can achieve what violence can't." Walsh studied Maya's face for a long moment. 12 hours? But if this fails, if there's even a hint that you've compromised our operations for nothing, I'll have you shot as a traitor." Maya nodded, accepting the terms. Understood. She walked out of Walsh's office knowing she had 12 hours to prevent 2 different wars and save 2 different species from each other. In her pocket, her personal phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah Kim. "Heard you might be back in school tomorrow. Saved you a seat in chemistry class." Maya smiled for the first time in days. If she succeeded, if she could somehow convince humans and Zeltharians to choose peace over war, then maybe she really would make it to chemistry class tomorrow. And maybe, for the first time since Kepler Station, Maya Chen could stop being a soldier and start being just a quiet girl who sat in the back row.